Hi, good morning, guys, and welcome to Unique and Different with me, Shamla. And it is times like these that, make this freelancing at TTT, I guess meaningful because you know when people are listening. And the case in point, I have the Minister of Works and Transport, the Honorable Rohan Sinanan, on the 20th. On the 20th, we celebrated Global Accessibility Awareness Day. And I think that given my life story and given everybody with a physical disability and even, a hidden disability, one of the main things that, main concern that we have is access. And let me explain something before I start. We often hear people, children and young adults not being able to go to school, not being able to access a job. And I don't think the minister don't now know how important his ministry is in terms of like allowing this allowing access, because oftentimes I hear I don't have transport. I cannot travel. Things is too expensive. So now we are going to have an in-depth discussion with regards to access. So good morning, Mr. Minister, and how are you?
Good morning, Shamila. Good morning to your team. And I must say it is an honor and a privilege to be interviewed by you this morning. I was really looking forward to this morning.
I've been looking forward. I have dreams all week last week interview. Yeah, so it made me more nervous. Okay, so let us start, right? I want to go broad and come down to the nitty-gritty of things. So, because this first question will actually frame my entire interview with you. In terms of budgeting, has COVID-19 impacted your goals, not operational, but in terms of budgeting, in achieving your goals for the next rest of the 4-year period?
Well, what the COVID-19 would have done, not only to the Ministry of Works and Transport, but I'm sure to other ministries, and this can be globally, it would have pushed back to some extent our goals. I don't think it would have impacted financially, yes, in terms of government revenue and so, but remember, we plan not on a yearly basis. We actually have a Vision 2030, and the government is working towards Vision 2030. Yes, I would say that the COVID-19 would have pushed us back, but it would not derail us from our mission of achieving what we would have set out to achieve in our Vision 2030 statement.
Talking about vision, as the Minister of Works and Transport, what is your vision as a leader? And in the helm of this fort, what is your vision in terms of global access in Trinidad and Tobago, locally? What is your vision for the next 4 years?
In terms of access, and we're speaking here about the differently able, the last census that was done showed that just over 4% of our citizens have some challenge in mobility in Trinidad and Tobago. In 2015, remember the government then signed on and onto that the convention where we ratified the convention in the United Nations, and what that did is that it placed the government in that where we have to improve the lives and the mobility and accessibility of all the differently able citizens. Most of our citizens have different levels of challenges, and in our 2030 vision statement, and if I can just quote from that statement, moreover, woven in the tapestry of Vision 2030, first theme for development is putting people first, nurturing our greatest assets. Under this theme, Goal 6, which includes several strategic actions, including the change to rehabilitate, integrate, and rejuvenate vulnerable groups historically marginalized. What I can
Right.
speak from at the Ministry of Works and Transport, how we would have, approached this task, and I can give typical examples of some of the things that we would have done for the differently able. If you could recall, some time ago, maybe about 2 years ago, we
Right.
installed that walkover at the then Parliament, just on Ryson Road there, where for the first time we had the traffic signals designed for access by this differently able citizens, where you have the visually impaired can use it, people with hearing impaired challenges couldn't use it, and it was also wheelchair accessible. I remember going there after it was completed with a team, and one of our staff members who is a differently able person, and he had to point out certain things to me that we had to correct, because unless you are, you have the physical, the experience of it, there are certain things that some of us will not understand. And going there, I had to call in a team to ask them to retrofit some of the things that we thought would have been, accessible. Go ahead.
Okay, so in 2019, you went to Parliament and you talked about parking, right? And from then, the policy needed to be implemented based on the framework, right? Was that implemented? And if it was not implemented, where we stand now in terms of building and parking, etc. Because you saying that in Parliament gave tremendous impact, meaning to push towards, if there's parking, there needs to be accessibility within, so there's a domino effect. So where we are now with regards to that.
Okay, so where we are with that, and I'm glad you brought that up. We went to cabinet first. We got the approval to go ahead, and we went to the Parliament. Where we are with that, we had the consultations. We brought in all the stakeholders, because, as I said, there are different citizens with different mobility challenges. So we had several consultations on it. We are now finalizing the framework for it. We want to go back out for one more round of consultation with the stakeholders to ensure that this is exactly what will satisfy a wide cross-section of our citizens. And then very soon, we are very far with that in terms of, we looked at the United States, we look at Canada, we look at Australia, we look at Cayman Islands and one other country. We looked at those examples that they use, and we had our consultations, and we are at the final stage now of putting that into motion, where our citizens with different mobility challenges will have full access under law to secured parking for them at various outlets, government buildings, malls, others. So that is something that we are fully on board with.
Thank you, Domino. Okay, so in terms of transport now, right? And I'm not sure if we could just like sum up the rest of the questions, because we coming to the end of time. But in terms of transport, right? And even road logistics, for example, street sides, everything works in tandem with each other, right? So in terms of transport, when will we be able to see transport in terms of equitable transport, meaning that if you bring a bus, the bus would not be separated for persons with disability. When you could even work with the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Trade to allocate certain taxis that is accessible, because private taxis charge $700 and $800 for one trip. So when would we be able to see these things where there's equitable inclusion?
Okay, so what we are working with right now is the PTSC, and as you're aware, we have 16 of these buses that are designated for the differently able citizens. We also 27 buses at this time that can accommodate wheelchair access. However, the government, we are in the process now of negotiating an additional 300 buses. And my information so far is that on the negotiation table, at least 210 of these buses we're looking at for access for differently able citizens, not only in terms of wheelchairs, but in terms of the different ways that you can get access to the conductor, the driver.
So these buses would be a dual bus in terms of...
Yes.
Right.
Yes, our policy is clear. Whatever we do at the ministry, we must bear in mind that, as I said, the last census, about 4% of our citizens had different challenges. Whatever we do, if we make a pavement, we must make that pavement accessible. If you look at the Kirep interchange, the entire interchange is supposed to be designed that someone with a wheelchair can cross the highway. And these are the things that we're including in all our infrastructure to ensure that, as we said in our Vision 2030, that every citizen must be treated equally.
And in terms of, like, for example, okay, so you mentioned time going fast, but you mentioned that, like, for example, the overpass. Now, when, like, for example, I go over the overpass, let's say, right, and I enter that pavement, how am I coming down from that pavement? And then if I want a taxi from that pavement, how I get in a taxi from that pavement to go to Summit? So suppose I go to Port of Spain, right?
Right.
And the taxi dropped me off where they're supposed to. How I am going to go to get to our next place to get another taxi, let's say to go to Woodbrook.
Okay. Now although we are putting things in place, I am confident that we are far from where we would like to be. But it's something that would have started, and as I said, it has to be taken into consideration. It is being taken into consideration in every step of the way going forward. And we also look at some of the things that was done in the past as to how we can retrofit it. I mean, it's a discussion that is active at the ministry. Okay? Any project going forward, we must consider the differently able, and not necessarily only those in wheelchairs, because there are people who would have different challenges and not necessarily in a wheelchair. So these are some of the things that we look at the ministry.
Right. And how do you benchmark us in terms of developed countries right now? How do you benchmark us? And just 2 questions to wrap up, right? How do you benchmark us now currently from, let's say, a developed country? And also, the last question would be, what, at the end of your term, right, what value would you like to bring to the community of persons with disability in terms of your role as Minister of Works and Transport?
Okay, in terms of how do I benchmark us, we would have started the journey, and what is embedded now in all the plans going forward is that focus and that attention to the differently able in society. So nothing comes to the front, nothing goes to cabinet without that being considered. So what I can say is that we have a long way to go, but the journey has started. And as Minister for the differently able, what I would take comfort in, that I would have been able to get that mindset into the ministry that, look, society is made up of several different groups, and we must cater for every single group. I think that have been, you look at the license office where we are going online with a lot of services. So differently able citizens can now have access online to most of the services. Maybe by the end of the year, I would say 75 to 80% of the services will be done online. So anything that goes forward from the ministry must take into consideration all the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago.
We have to wrap here, but seriously, this was amazing. Thank you so much. First time in history, I think someone of your, it's in a ministry like this come forward and actually spoke on behalf of persons with disability. And I want to invite you back later on to, I guess, if you accomplish just one or two of these things, to come and talk about those wins that we got at the end of your term. So I will keep in touch. And Minister, I want to say thank you so much. I was so nervous and I was so looking forward to it. And it's very something. So thank you, and we'll keep in touch.
I want to thank you for the opportunity, and I will tell you this will be my favorite interview, and I will always keep a recording of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Minister, Minister.
Don't get jealous, Natalie. Don't get jealous.
All right, no jealousy, no jealousy.
Thank you. Nice day.
With that being said, I want to say thank you so much for tuning in to this week's segment of Unique and Different. Be safe, and as I always say, be good, do good. Bye, guys. Bye. Bye, Mr. Minister.
Bye. Bye.